Mo Salah to Manchester United? Breaking down football's most outrageous transfer rumour. Welcome back to United Daily Updates, the most trusted source for Manchester United news on YouTube. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we bring you honest, reliable coverage of everything United without the clickbait nonsense. Today we're talking about something absolutely wild that has the entire football world buzzing. The story that broke the internet. Picture this. You're scrolling through social media on a Tuesday morning, maybe having your breakfast, checking football news like you always do. Then you see it. Headline suggesting that Manchester United could make an offer for Mohamed Salah. Yes, that Mohamed Salah. Liverpool's all-time leading scorer. The Egyptian king. One of the greatest players in Premier League history. Moving from Liverpool to Manchester United. Your first reaction is probably to laugh. This has to be a joke, right? There's no way this could ever happen. The rivalry between Manchester United and Liverpool is one of the biggest in world football. Players don't move between these clubs. It just doesn't happen in the modern era. But then you read more. Rio Ferdinand, a Manchester United legend, was asked about it on his podcast. And he said he would make a public offer for Salah if he was in charge at United. Not a private offer. A public one. Just to poke the bear and cause chaos. This is the kind of story that makes football so entertaining and so dramatic. It's probably never going to happen. But the fact that people are even talking about it tells you something big is going on. Mohamed Salah and Liverpool are having serious problems. And when a player of that quality potentially becomes available, every big club pays attention, even if the move seems impossible. In this blog post, we're going to break down everything about this incredible situation. We'll look at what's happening between Salah and Liverpool, why their relationship has broken down, whether Manchester United would actually be interested, what Rio Ferdinand really meant, and what this all means for both clubs. By the end, you'll understand why this story is bigger than just a crazy transfer rumor. So let's dive in and make sense of football's most outrageous transfer story right now. What's happening between Salah and Liverpool? Before we can talk about Manchester United potentially signing Salah, we need to understand what's going on at Liverpool. Why would one of their greatest ever players even be available? Let's break down this mess. Mohamed Salah has been at Liverpool since 2017. In that time, he's been absolutely incredible. He's scored 250 goals in 420 appearances. Think about that number for a second. 250 goals. That's an average of about 35 goals per season over 7 years. That's world-class consistency at the highest level. He's won the Premier League with Liverpool. He's won the Champions League. He's won every trophy available at club level. He's been the Premier League Golden Boot winner multiple times. He's been one of the best players in the world for years. Liverpool fans worship him. He's a legend at Anfield. So what went wrong? How did we get from that to where we are now? The problem started recently when Liverpool drew 3-3 with Leeds United at Elland Road. After that game, Salah gave an explosive interview that shocked everyone. He didn't hold back. He criticized the club. He criticized the manager, Arne Slot. He said he felt like he'd been thrown under the bus. He said he had no relationship with Slot. These are incredibly strong words from a player, especially one of Salah's status. You don't usually hear senior players speaking publicly like this about their own club and manager. It was a clear sign that something serious was wrong behind the scenes. What made Salah so angry? He'd been named as a substitute for the third time in a week. For a player of his quality and his achievements at the club, being dropped repeatedly is insulting. Salah clearly felt disrespected. He felt the club and manager weren't treating him with the honor he deserved. The fallout from that interview was immediate. Liverpool's next game was a Champions League match against Inter Milan. Did Salah play? No. He wasn't even in the squad. He trained with the team on Monday, but then he was left out of the travelling party completely. This was a clear message from Arne Slot. You can't criticize the manager and the club publicly and expect to play. Slot was asserting his authority. He was showing that no player, not even Mohamed Salah, is bigger than the team. Liverpool went on to win that game 1-0 with a late penalty from Dominic Szoboszlai. They got the 3 points they needed. But everyone was talking about Salah, not the victory. After the game, Liverpool's captain Virgil van Dijk was asked whether Salah should apologise. His answer was really interesting. He said it's not up to him to say who should apologise. He said Salah was airing his feelings and the club has to deal with it. He admitted that things between Salah and the club are going on and Salah obviously wasn't there to help them get 3 points. Van Dijk also said that he's known Salah a long time. They're friends, they've had highs and lows together, but those conversations will stay indoors. That's diplomatic language for saying there are serious issues but is not going to discuss them publicly. Another teammate, Andy Robertson, tried to defend Salah. He said internally they're all together. He said he enjoys playing alongside Salah and wants to continue doing so. But even that sounds like he's trying to hold things together when they're falling apart. So where does this leave us? Liverpool's next Premier League game is against Brighton on Saturday. Will Salah play in that game? Nobody knows. If he doesn't, it could be his last appearance for Liverpool because he's leaving for the Africa Cup of Nations on December 15th. Salah will be with Egypt until at least December 29th for the group stages. If Egypt goes deep in the tournament, he could be away until January 18th. By that time, the January transfer window will be open. If both Salah and Liverpool want him gone, a transfer could happen during that window. That's the context for why people are even discussing Salah potentially leaving Liverpool. This isn't just media speculation based on nothing. There are real, serious problems. A relationship has broken down. And when that happens with a player of Salah's caliber, clubs start paying attention. The contract situation. To fully understand the Salah situation, we need to talk about his contract. This adds another layer of complexity to everything. Salah's contract was actually set to expire last summer. He was going to be a free agent. But in April, he signed a 2-year extension. That means his current contract runs until the summer of 2027. When he signed that extension, everything seemed fine. Liverpool secured one of their best players for another 2 years. Salah got the contract he wanted. Everyone was happy. But something changed since then. Maybe the relationship with Onslaught never clicked. Maybe Salah expected to be the undisputed star and was unhappy about being rotated. Maybe Liverpool expected more from him and are disappointed with his form this season. Because here's the thing, Salah's form this season hasn't been great. He's only scored 5 goals across all competitions. For a player who scored 34 goals last season, that's a massive drop. His standards are so high that 5 goals feels like a failure. Is the poor form causing the conflict? Or is the conflict causing the poor form? That's a chicken and egg question. When a player and manager aren't getting along, performances suffer. When performances suffer, tensions rise. It becomes a negative cycle. The contract situation means Liverpool are in a position of strength financially. They don't need to sell Salah. He's under contract until 2027. They could keep him even if he wants to leave. They could refuse any offers and force him to stay. But keeping an unhappy player rarely works out well. If Salah genuinely wants to leave and Liverpool force him to stay, what happens? Does he sulk and not try? Does the situation poison the dressing room? Does his value drop further as he gets older and his contract runs down? On the other hand, if Liverpool do decide to sell, they could get significant money for Salah even though he's 33 years old. He's still Mohamed Salah. He's still a world-class player when he's happy and motivated. Clubs in Saudi Arabia would pay huge money for him. Other European clubs might be interested too. The contract situation gives Liverpool options. They can keep him if they want. They can sell him if the right offer comes. They can loan him if that makes sense. They're not desperate. But the relationship problems mean they might prefer to move him on rather than deal with the drama. For Salah, having 2 years left on his contract gives him some security but also limits his options. He can't just leave as a free agent. Any move would require Liverpool's approval. That gives the club leverage in negotiations. The whole situation is messy and complicated, which is exactly why it's attracting so much attention. What Rio Ferdinand actually said. Now let's talk about what Rio Ferdinand actually said because this is where the Manchester United angle comes in. Understanding the context of his comments is really important. Rio Ferdinand was on his podcast called Rio Ferdinand Presents. He was talking with Ste Housen, who is a Manchester United fan and content creator. They were discussing the Salah situation at Liverpool. Housen asked Ferdinand a question. Do United sign him? It was half serious, half joking. The kind of question you ask when you're just throwing ideas around and seeing what reaction you get. Ferdinand's first response was, no way. Mo Salah don't go to Man United. That's a clear statement. He doesn't think it would happen. He doesn't think Salah would make that move. But then Housen pushed back. He said, depends how angry Salah is. The implication being that if Salah is angry enough at Liverpool, maybe he would do the unthinkable and join their biggest rivals. Ferdinand responded by saying he doesn't think Salah has that Wayne Rooney streak. What does that mean? Wayne Rooney famously pushed for a move away from Manchester United. He was willing to go to Manchester City at one point. He put his own interests above loyalty. Ferdinand is saying he doesn't think Salah would do something similar. Then Housen asked another question. But if you're United, do you poke the bear? In other words, even if you don't think Salah would join, should United make an offer just to cause chaos and mess with Liverpool? That's when Ferdinand said, "Yeah, I'll make an offer." Public one as well. This is the quote that generated all the headlines. Ferdinand saying he would make a public offer for Salah. Howson's response was brilliant. "I'd do it just for the riot that it'll cause." They both laughed. It was clear they were being somewhat tongue-in-cheek. They weren't seriously suggesting this is a good idea or that it will happen. The article reporting on this conversation specifically says Ferdinand and Howson's comments appear to be tongue-in-cheek. They were having fun with a crazy idea. They were entertaining their audience. They were being provocative. But here's the interesting thing. Even though they were joking, there's a kernel of truth in what they're saying. Football is about psychological warfare sometimes. Teams do things just to unsettle their rivals. Making a public offer for Liverpool's best player, even if you know he won't accept, sends a message. It causes drama. It puts pressure on Liverpool. It dominates the news cycle. Would Manchester United actually do this? Almost certainly not. It would be seen as disrespectful and unprofessional. It would damage relationships in football. And realistically, Salah would never accept anyway. But the fact that Rio Ferdinand, a United legend, is even discussing it on his podcast shows how big the Salah situation has become. When serious people are talking about impossible transfers, you know something major is happening. Would Salah ever join Manchester United? Let's address the elephant in the room. Could Mohamed Salah actually join Manchester United? Is there any universe where this happens? Let's think through this seriously. The rivalry between Manchester United and Liverpool is one of the biggest in world football. It goes back decades. It's not just about football. It's about history, culture, cities, identity. These clubs hate each other. The fans hate each other. Playing for one and then the other is basically unthinkable. In the modern era, players rarely move directly between these clubs. The last high-profile transfer was Paul Ince's way back in 1997. That's almost 30 years ago. It just doesn't happen anymore. The rivalry is too intense. Why doesn't it happen? Because players who make that move become hated by the fans of their old club forever. Paul Ince is still remembered negatively by Manchester United fans for how he left and for joining Liverpool. Nobody wants that kind of legacy. For Mohamed Salah specifically, this would be even worse. He's not just any Liverpool player. He's a Liverpool legend. He's scored 250 goals for them. He's won the biggest trophies with them. Liverpool fans absolutely love him. They call him the Egyptian King. His status at Anfield is untouchable. If he joined Manchester United, all of that love would turn to hate instantly. Liverpool fans would burn his shirts. They would sing songs insulting him. They would boo him every time United play at Anfield. His legacy at Liverpool would be completely destroyed. Would Salah really do that to himself? Would he really throw away all the goodwill and love he's built up over 7 years for a move to United? It seems incredibly unlikely. There's also the fact that Salah is a Muslim. Liverpool has a huge Muslim fanbase around the world partly because of Salah. He's an icon to millions of people. Doing something as controversial as joining Liverpool's biggest rivals would disappoint many of those fans. Salah seems to care about his image and his legacy. Would he risk that? And then there's the practical side. The article mentions that Salah's profile doesn't necessarily fit into Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 system. Amorim plays a very specific tactical setup at Manchester United. Salah is a traditional winger who plays in a 4-3-3. Making him work in Amorim's system would be challenging. Plus, Salah is 33 years old. Manchester United under their new ownership are trying to build for the future. They're focusing on younger players. Would they really want to sign a 33-year-old on big wages, even if he is Mohamed Salah? Put all of this together and the answer is clear. No, Salah will not join Manchester United. The chances are maybe 0.1% at best. It would require such a perfect storm of circumstances that it's basically impossible. He would have to be so angry at Liverpool that he doesn't care about his legacy there. United would have to want him despite the tactical concerns and his age. Salah would have to be willing to accept the backlash. And both clubs would have to be willing to do business with each other, which they hate doing. None of that is likely to happen. So while this makes for an entertaining story, it's not a realistic transfer possibility. Why this story matters even though it won't happen. If Salah isn't going to join Manchester United, why are we spending so much time talking about this? Why does this story matter? Because it tells us some important things about football right now. First, it shows how broken the relationship is between Salah and Liverpool. For this rumor to even exist, things must be really bad. When people can seriously discuss a Liverpool legend joining Manchester United, you know the situation has reached crisis point. Think about it. If Salah was happy at Liverpool, if his relationship with Onslaught was good, if everything was fine, nobody would even mention United. The fact that this is being discussed, even jokingly, shows how far things have deteriorated. Second, it shows how football rivalries work in the modern era. Rio Ferdinand wasn't seriously suggesting United should sign Salah, but he was suggesting they should make an offer just to cause drama. That's psychological warfare. That's trying to unsettle your rivals. That's part of what makes football entertaining beyond just what happens on the pitch. Third, it shows how powerful the media cycle is in modern football. One comment on a podcast becomes an article. That article gets shared on social media. Other outlets pick it up. Suddenly everyone is talking about something that was originally just a throwaway comment. The story takes on a life of its own. Fourth, it reminds us that in football, loyalties aren't as strong as they used to be. Players move between rival clubs more than in the past. Carlos Tevez went from United to City. Robin van Persie went from Arsenal to United. Adebayor went from Arsenal to City. These moves that would have been unthinkable 30 years ago now happen regularly. So while Salah to United is still extremely unlikely, the fact that people can discuss it without it seeming completely absurd shows how football has changed. Fifth, it highlights how unstable even successful situations can become. Liverpool have been brilliant in recent years. Salah has been one of their best players. Everything seemed perfect. But one managerial change, one drop in form, one personality clash, and suddenly it all falls apart. Nothing in football is permanent. Sixth, it shows how January transfer windows can be crazy. When you have an unhappy star player, a manager under pressure, and a transfer window opening, anything can happen. Maybe not Salah to United, but certainly some surprising moves. January always brings drama. The story matters because it's a snapshot of modern football. The drama, the speculation, the impossible rumors that get taken seriously, the way relationships can break down quickly, the media circus around everything. This is what football is like now, for better or worse. What are Salah's realistic options? So if Salah isn't going to Manchester United, where could he actually go? What are his realistic options if he does leave Liverpool? Let's think through the possibilities. Option 1, Saudi Arabia. This is probably the most likely destination if Salah leaves. The Saudi Pro League has been trying to sign him for years. They offered huge money before and he turned it down. But circumstances change. If he's unhappy at Liverpool and wants a fresh start, Saudi Arabia could work. The money would be incredible. Saudi clubs pay wages that European clubs can't match. Salah could probably double or triple his current salary. At 33 years old, this might be his last chance to earn that kind of money. The financial motivation is huge. He would also be treated like royalty. Saudi Arabia has a big Egyptian population. Salah would be the biggest star in the league. He would be the face of Saudi football. The respect and adoration would be enormous. The downsides are obvious. The Saudi league isn't as competitive as the Premier League. Salah's legacy would be affected if he leaves elite European football at 33. And there are concerns about human rights in Saudi Arabia that some players struggle with. Option 2. Stay at Liverpool and repair the relationship. This might sound unlikely after everything that's happened, but it's possible. Emotions are high right now. Given some time, maybe Salah and Onslaught can work things out. Maybe they have a meeting, clear the air, and move forward. Liverpool would prefer this option. They don't want to lose Salah. He's still a valuable player when he's motivated. And selling him in January would be difficult. Finding a replacement mid-season is nearly impossible. Salah might prefer this too if the alternative is Saudi Arabia. He loves playing at the highest level. He loves the Premier League. He loves challenging for trophies. Can he get that anywhere else? The problem is trust. Once a relationship breaks down this badly, can it really be fixed? Will Slot ever fully trust Salah again? Will Salah ever fully respect Slot? These are difficult questions. Option 3. A loan move to another European club. This could be a compromise solution. Salah goes somewhere else for the rest of the season. He plays regularly, gets his form back, and shows he's still world class. Then in the summer, everyone reassesses. Clubs in Italy, Spain, or France might be interested in a loan. They'd get a world-class player for 6 months without the long-term commitment. For Salah, it would keep him at the top level and away from the Liverpool drama. The problem is Liverpool would probably prefer to sell rather than loan. Loans don't solve the underlying issues. They just delay the inevitable. Option 4. Retirement from club football. Hear me out. Salah is 33. He's won everything at club level. He's made huge amounts of money. He's a legend. Maybe he decides to focus on playing for Egypt in his final years and steps away from club football. This seems extremely unlikely. Players of Salah's quality don't retire at 33. They usually play into their late 30s. But it's technically an option if he wants to go out on top and preserve his legacy. Option 5, MLS in America. The article mentions MLS as a possible destination. American clubs love signing big-name players in their 30s. Salah would be a massive star in MLS. The league is growing. The lifestyle would be good. The pressure would be less than Europe. This could be attractive to Salah in a year or two. But probably not right now in January. MLS clubs don't usually do big deals in winter. They do them in summer when their season is starting. Looking at all these options, Saudi Arabia seems most likely if Salah does leave. The money is too good to ignore. And after the Liverpool fallout, a complete fresh start in a different football culture might appeal to him. But personally, I think there's a decent chance he stays at Liverpool. Once emotions cool down, the practical realities might push both sides toward reconciliation. It's not ideal, but it might be the least bad option for everyone. The on-slot factor. We've talked a lot about Salah, but what about on-slot? How much of this situation is his fault? Let's examine the Liverpool manager's role in all of this. On-slot took over at Liverpool fairly recently, replacing Jurgen Klopp. That's a tough act to follow. Klopp was beloved at Liverpool. He won everything. The fans adored him. Following that is incredibly difficult for any manager. Slot came in with his own ideas about how Liverpool should play. Every new manager does. They want to put their stamp on the team. They want to implement their philosophy. That's normal and expected. But here's the problem. When you take over a successful team with established stars, you have to be careful about how you handle them. These players have won trophies. They're used to being treated a certain way. If you come in and immediately start dropping them, there's going to be conflict. That's exactly what happened with Salah. Slot started rotating him, naming him as a substitute, leaving him out of games. For a player of Salah's status and achievement, that feels disrespectful. Whether Slot intended it that way or not, that's how Salah interpreted it. Now, maybe Slot has good reasons for his decisions. Maybe he's managing Salah's fitness and trying to keep him fresh. Maybe he's trying to implement a system where no player is untouchable. Maybe he sees something in training that makes him want to rotate Salah. But the execution has been poor. If you're going to drop a club legend, you need to communicate that properly. You need to explain your thinking. You need to make the player feel valued even when they're not playing. It seems like Slot didn't do that effectively with Salah. The public nature of the conflict is also Slot's responsibility as manager. When a player gives an explosive interview criticizing you, you've lost control of the situation. Good man management prevents that from happening. Players should feel they can talk to the manager privately about issues rather than going to the media. Dropping Salah completely for the Inter Milan game was a strong move by Slot. He was showing authority. He was saying that no player can criticize him publicly without consequences. That's important for a manager. You can't let players undermine you. But it also escalated the situation. Now instead of a private disagreement, this is a full public war. Everyone is talking about it. It's dominating the news. That creates pressure on both Slot and Salah. It makes it harder to resolve things quietly. Some Liverpool fans blame Slot for this mess. They think he mishandled a club legend. They think he should have been more respectful and careful with Salah. These fans would rather keep Salah and question whether Slot is the right manager. Other Liverpool fans back Slot. They think his right to assert his authority. They think Salah was unprofessional giving that interview. They think the manager has to be in charge, not the players. These fans would rather back Slot and let Salah go if necessary. The truth is probably that both sides made mistakes. Slot could have handled Salah better. Salah shouldn't have gone public with his complaints. But once these things start, they're hard to stop. Egos get involved. Pride gets involved. Positions become entrenched. For Slot, this is a huge test of his management skills. How he navigates this situation will define his early tenure at Liverpool. If he handles it well and Liverpool keep performing, he'll earn respect. If it all falls apart and the team suffers, questions will be asked about whether he was ready for this job. What this means for Manchester United. Even though Manchester United aren't actually going to sign Mohamed Salah, this situation still matters for United fans. Why? Because it tells us something about where both clubs are right now. Liverpool are in crisis. Their best player is unhappy. Their manager is under pressure. Results have been inconsistent. They're having public conflicts and drama. This is exactly the kind of chaos that United fans love to see at their biggest rivals. There's definitely some schadenfreude here. Manchester United have had their own problems with Ruben Amorim and poor results. Seeing Liverpool also struggling makes United fans feel a bit better. Misery loves company, as they say. But it also raises some interesting questions for United. If Liverpool are willing to sell Salah, does that create opportunities in the transfer market? Not to sign Salah themselves, but in other ways. For example, if Salah goes to Saudi Arabia, that's one less elite player competing in the Premier League. That could help United in their race for top 4. One less world-class player to worry about when you play Liverpool. Or if Liverpool sell Salah and struggle to replace him, that weakens a rival. Liverpool without Salah is a worse team, at least in the short term. That could benefit United in the league standings and in the general rivalry. There's also the psychological aspect. If United are struggling under Amorim and Liverpool are also struggling under Slot, that puts both clubs on similar footing. Neither can claim to be clearly ahead of the other. The rivalry becomes more even, which makes it more interesting. For United players, seeing what's happening at Liverpool might make them appreciate their own situation more. Whatever problems United have, at least they're not dealing with the public civil war that Liverpool are experiencing right now. Rio Ferdinand suggesting United should make a public offer for Salah, even as a joke, is actually quite smart from a psychological warfare perspective. It draws attention to Liverpool's problems. It makes Liverpool look weak. It suggests that even their biggest rivals think Salah is available. That's embarrassing for Liverpool. The fact that this story exists at all, that people are even discussing the impossible scenario of Salah to United, is a victory for United in the psychological battle. It makes Liverpool look bad. It makes them look like a club in chaos. That's exactly what rivals want. Of course, United should be focused on their own problems rather than celebrating Liverpool's struggles. United are in 12th place. They have their own managerial situation with Amorim under pressure. They have their own player issues with Kobbie Mainoo. Glass houses and stones and all that. But football fandom isn't logical. United fans are going to enjoy watching Liverpool struggle, just as Liverpool fans enjoyed watching United struggle over the last decade. That's part of the rivalry. That's part of what makes it fun. The Salah situation doesn't really change anything concrete for Manchester United. They're not signing him. They're not benefiting directly from Liverpool's problems. But it does provide entertainment and psychological satisfaction, which matters to fans even if it doesn't matter for points in the table. The Jamie Carragher apology. One interesting subplot in this whole saga is Jamie Carragher's apology to Mohamed Salah. Let's talk about what happened there because it adds context to the situation. Jamie Carragher is a Liverpool legend. He played for the club for his entire career. He's now a pundit on Sky Sports and CBS Sports. He's known for being honest and critical, even of his former club. After Salah gave his explosive interview, Carragher went on Monday Night Football and called Salah a disgrace. Those are strong words. Carragher was basically saying Salah had acted unprofessionally and let down his teammates and the club. That take seemed harsh to many people. Yes, Salah probably shouldn't have given that interview. Yes, he should have kept his complaints private. But calling him a disgrace? For a club legend who has given so much to Liverpool? That seemed over the top. After Liverpool beat Inter Milan without Salah, Carragher appeared on CBS Sports and issued an apology. He said he was wrong to call Salah a disgrace. He walked back his comments. Why did Carragher apologize? Probably because he realized he went too far. In the heat of the moment, when you're doing live television, sometimes you say things that are too strong. When you have time to reflect, you realize you should have been more measured. There's also the reality that Carragher loves Liverpool. He doesn't want to add to the drama or make things worse. If his comments were causing problems or upsetting Salah, that's not helpful to his beloved club. Better to apologize and try to calm things down. The fact that even Jamie Carragher, who is never afraid to criticize, felt he needed to apologize shows how sensitive this situation is. Everyone is walking on eggshells. Nobody wants to make things worse. The conflict is real and serious. Carragher's initial criticism and then his apology also shows how divided opinion is about this situation. Some people think Salah is in the wrong. Others think Slot is in the wrong. Others think both made mistakes. There's no consensus. Everyone has a different take. For Salah, seeing someone like Carragher first criticize him and then apologize must be confusing and frustrating. It shows that even Liverpool legends don't know how to handle this situation. Nobody has the right answers. The whole thing is messy, which is why it's generating so much discussion and so many different opinions. What Van Dijk's comments really mean. Virgil van Dijk's comments after the Inter Milan game were really interesting if you read between the lines. Let's analyze what the Liverpool captain was really saying. On the surface, Van Dijk was diplomatic. He said it's not up to him to say who should apologize. He said things between Salah and the club are ongoing. He said Liverpool need to be a unit and deal with outside noise. All very measured and professional. But there are hints in there of what's really going on. When Van Dijk says it's not up to him to say who should apologize, that's actually quite revealing. If the situation was clear-cut, if Salah was obviously in the wrong, Van Dijk would probably say so. The fact that his staying neutral suggests it's complicated. Maybe both sides have valid points. When he says things between Salah and the club are going on, he's confirming this isn't a small issue. These are ongoing problems. This isn't something that happened once and is now resolved. The conflict continues. When he talks about being a unit and dealing with outside noise, he's trying to hold the team together. That's his job as captain. But the fact that he feels the need to say it suggests the unit is under threat. If everything was fine, he wouldn't need to emphasize unity. Van Dijk also said he's known Salah a long time, they're friends, and they've had highs and lows. But those conversations will stay indoors. That's him protecting his friend while also maintaining professionalism. He's not going to expose private conversations. But he's acknowledging that he and Salah have talked about this. The overall impression from Van Dijk's comments is of someone trying to keep peace. He's stuck in the middle between his friend Salah and his manager slot. He wants both sides to work it out. He's trying to hold the dressing room together during a difficult time. That's leadership, but it's also a sign of how serious the situation is. Andy Robertson's comments were more overtly supportive of Salah. He said he enjoys playing with Salah and wants to continue doing so. He said internally they're all together. That sounds like Robertson is taking Salah's side, or at least making sure Salah knows the players support him. The fact that multiple Liverpool players felt the need to comment publicly shows this isn't just a minor disagreement. This is a major situation affecting the whole squad. Everyone is being asked about it. Everyone has to take a position or try to stay neutral. That's uncomfortable for everyone involved. For Manchester United fans watching this unfold, it's fascinating. You rarely get to see inside a rival club's drama like this. Usually these things stay private. But this has spilled out into public view, and we're getting to see how messy it can be when relationships break down at the top level of football. The Africa Cup of Nations timing. The timing of the Africa Cup of Nations adds another complicated layer to this situation. Let's talk about how that affects everything. Salah is set to leave for Morocco on December 15th to join the Egypt national team for the Africa Cup of Nations. That's coming up very soon. He'll be gone for at least 2 weeks, possibly longer depending on how far Egypt goes in the tournament. If Egypt only plays the 3 group games, Salah returns around December 29th. But if Egypt reaches the final, he could be away until January 18th. That's more than a month away from Liverpool. This timing is significant for several reasons. First, it means Liverpool's game against Brighton on Saturday could be Salah's last appearance for the club, at least for a while. If Slot doesn't pick him for that game, Salah goes to the Africa Cup without playing again. That would be a strange way for things to stand. Second, the January transfer window opens on January 1st. While Salah is away with Egypt, the window will be open. Deals could be negotiated and completed while he's not even at the club. That makes the situation more fluid and unpredictable. Third, being away from Liverpool for a month might actually help cool things down.